Okay, here is a contradiction that should bother everyone. Nearly every organization is now using AI, but very few derive any real value from it. And that's not a cynical take. It's literally what the research shows. In McKinsey's 2025 State of AI report, 88% of organizations say that they use AI in at least one part of the business, but only about 6% are seeing it pay off in a meaningful way. Near universal adoption and almost no measurable advantage. So the question is, why? Why is almost everyone using this technology and almost no one winning with it? Here's the thing. The constraint is rarely the technology itself. It's that organizations begin in the wrong place and in the wrong order. Over the next 10 minutes, I will give you a framework, 3 questions asked in sequence that tells you where to start and what to do next. Whether you lead a finance team, an operations team, or simply trying to make AI useful in your own work. Let's get into it. So here's the plan. It comes down to 3 questions asked in order. 1, are we ready? Most teams skip this entirely, and it's honestly the single biggest reason they fail. 2, what should we actually delegate to a machine and what should remain with a person? And 3, how do we sequence the rollout so it actually holds? So we have readiness, routing, and rollout. That's the whole framework. Let's take them one at a time. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Sunny, and I'm a serial founder now on my 4th startup. I'm a former senior engineer at Bloomberg and Shopify, and currently an adjunct professor at Columbia Business School, where I teach tech and AI. Listen, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've made all the mistakes so you don't have to. My goal for today's video, and really all my videos, is to help you make sense of this ever-evolving tech and AI landscape. Let's get started with our first step. All right, so question 1. Before you automate anything, you have to answer a more fundamental question. How legible is your work to a machine? Legibility is just a precise word for a simple idea. Is your work standardized enough and your data structured enough for a system to act on it reliably? And listen, this is the single best predictor of whether AI delivers actual value for you. It's also the dimension organizations most consistently overestimate. In a 2025 study from Harvard Business Review, only about 7% of enterprises said their data was fully ready for AI, and nearly 3/4 reported real difficulty in just preparing it. So readiness, not model quality, is the binding constraint for most teams. Now, there are 2 dimensions here that you really want to assess. So the first is process standardization. Is the work performed the same way every time? Or does each region, each team, each analyst approach it differently? But the real test runs deeper. It's not just whether the steps match, it's whether the rules behind those steps can actually be articulated and written down. If the logic resides in someone's head, in their experience, in their judgment, a machine can't act on it yet. If it can be written down, it can definitely be delegated. Now, consider a simple example, a monthly close that runs the same steps in the same order across every market, governed by rules you could hand to a new hire on day 1. Now, that is a strong candidate for automation. The same close improvised 15 different ways depending on who's running it is not a good candidate. Automating that doesn't actually create value. It simply encodes inconsistency at greater speed. Now, the second dimension is your data. Is it structured? Is it centralized? Is it trustworthy? Or is it dispersed across spreadsheets and systems that don't actually reconcile? Because here's the deal. Point AI at unreliable data and it doesn't reduce the error. It actually reproduces it at scale. And that's what we definitely want to avoid. Now, here's the counterintuitive part. The standardization that can feel like rigidity in daily work is actually a significant asset. The very uniformity people complain about, everyone on the same system, the same processes, is precisely what makes an organization AI ready. And that's especially true for finance and operation teams, where the work is repeatable by design. Okay, so now we're on question 2. Once you know you're ready, what do you actually delegate to AI? So this is where I see many organizations go wrong. They simply layer AI on top of everything indiscriminately. We definitely don't want to do that. Instead, think in terms of 3 modes and route every task to the one that actually fits. So the first is deterministic. This is rules-based work that admits exactly one correct answer. So things like matching transactions, applying a reconciliation rule, posting a structured entry. Work like this should stay deterministic by design. Don't let AI improvise here. The very probabilism that makes it valuable elsewhere becomes a liability in processes whose whole integrity depends on having no probabilism. The second, of course, is probabilistic. So this is pattern recognition across messy or incomplete inputs, flagging an anomaly, drafting a first pass narrative, surfacing an outlier you never would have caught. This is actually where AI contributes the most value. But here's the thing, and this is key. It should propose and not decide. Its output is an input to human judgment, not a substitute for it. And then, of course, the third mode is the human in the loop. This is the judgment layer, and it's your point of control. A person reviews, approves, and retains ownership of the decision wherever the stakes, the ambiguity, or the accountability demand it. And listen, this isn't just temporary scaffolding that you will dismantle once the models mature. In serious work, it's actually a permanent feature of sound design. So the discipline isn't AI or no AI, it's actually more routing. The more legible and repeatable the task, the more confidently you can actually automate it. The more it depends on genuine human judgment, the more firmly it stays with an actual human. And the insight here is that a single process usually contains all 3 modes. So the real skill is decomposing it rather than treating it as one binary decision. Right. So question 3, and this is the one that quietly undermines most rollouts. The most common mistake that a organization makes is moving straight to capturing value for the organization in headcount or throughput, for example, before the people actually doing the work have felt any benefit themselves. Adoption built this way is brittle and quietly resisted. So here's a more durable sequence. 4 different phases you can follow. So phase 1, personal productivity. Give individuals time back first through drafting, summarizing, searching, preparing, so the benefit reaches the employee before it reaches the organization. This isn't a preliminary step to rush past, by the way. It's actually what earns the buy-in everything else depends on. MIT's 2025 research found that employees already are operating what it called a shadow AI economy, using their own personal AI accounts at work because those tools simply felt more useful than the official ones. People adopt the AI that helps them meet that instinct rather than fighting it. Then we get to phase 2, which is workflow augmentation. So now we move from the individual to the team. AI assists with your existing process. A reviewer who sees 20 exceptions instead of 200. A close that surfaces its own discrepancies. The time savings now becomes collective and measurable. Then we get to phase 3, which is process redesign. This is where the real value lives and where most organizations stop short. In that same McKinsey research, only 21% of organizations had fundamentally redesigned any workflow around AI. And by the way, redesign was the single attribute most correlated with actual value creation. Augmenting an existing process helps. Rebuilding it around what AI now makes possible, though, is what really moves the bottom line. And then finally, we get to phase 4, strategic capability. So once the foundation holds, AI extends into higher order work. For example, scenario modeling, driver-based forecasting, real-time variance analysis. So the team's center of gravity kind of shifts from producing numbers to actually interrogating them. So, and by the way, where you begin on this curve depends on that first question. High legibility, of course, lets you move quickly and reach redesign sooner. Low legibility means that the early phases double as preparation. You standardize and clean the foundations as you go. Now, a brief word on tooling, because I know you're probably wondering, well, which AI tool or model makes sense to start with? And here's my honest take. Begin with the one you already have. For most team, that's literally whatever's bundled into the productivity suite they're already licensed to use. The principles I've just basically walked through, readiness, routing, rollout, are pretty much model agnostic. So they hold regardless of vendor. But 3 practical notes though on this point. So first, confidentiality. The worry is real. Is my company's data safe if we put it into one of these tools? But you actually solve that with the right kind of account, not by switching to a different assistant. So an enterprise license, the paid company level version, usually comes with real guarantees that your data stays private and it won't be used to actually train any models. The second thing I want you to note is I want you to start with what you already have. The tool is almost never the thing holding you back. It's tempting to spend 3 months evaluating different vendors, but the real constraint is your readiness, your processes, and your data, not which assistant you happen to pick. So start with the one already bundled into the software you pay for and start now. And the last note I'll make on this is I want you to keep your options open. The space is moving incredibly fast. What's best in class today might be second best in 6 months. So don't wire your entire operation around one tool you can't walk away from. The organizations that win are not the ones that pick the perfect tools. They're the ones that stay flexible enough to adopt whatever comes next. And that brings us to the end of our video. If you stuck around till the end, I appreciate you. I will see you on the next one.